That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
All right, guys, we officially hit 17,000 subscribers. Thank y'all all so much for the tremendous support that y'all have showed so far this football season. I mean, guys, we started at 2,000 subscribers. Now that we are here, honestly, looking back, I never would have thought that we'd have come this far in one season of football. It took us 2 years to get to that 2,000 subscriber mark. So just going out and almost 10xing our subscriber count in a span of 6 weeks, just absolutely insane, and I owe it all to y'all. It's all because y'all are going down and consistently smashing that like button and leaving comments on the videos. Thank y'all so much. And because of y'all showing all that support, y'all know we are going to continue to be the #1 fantasy football channel in answering your questions directly. All of these questions that I got today were from Instagram. Y'all know that pretty much every video that I make on Saturdays and almost Fridays are from Instagram with your questions through my DMs. So if you're not already, make sure you go follow us there. I'll try to remember to put it on the screen. I'd imagine pretty much everyone watching this video, though, is already following. So let's get into it, and our first decision is going to be at the flex spot between Darrell Henderson and Brandon Aiyuk. So I will say, y'all know I was pretty much completely wrong with Cam Akers up until this point. I thought that when Cam Akers was coming back and he was going to be activated for these games, we were going to see him have a role right away in this Los Angeles Rams offense, taking both carries and targets away from Darrell Henderson, and that has just not happened so far. I mean, I still want to stand by the fact that I think Cam Akers is still dealing with that rib injury. If we look at him going out before that injury, he actually commanded the first 3 carries of the game for this Los Angeles Rams backfield. So I think Sean McVay truly wants to get Cam Akers involved. The problem is he's just not 100% back, and I don't think we can project him to be until we see those touches on the football field. So right now, clearly Darrell Henderson is still the running back 1 in Los Angeles, but the problem here is he is not even seeing that 3-down usage without Cam Akers in this offense, because for whatever reason, Sean McVay still wants to get Malcolm Brown the ball, and it's not like Malcolm Brown is seeing the meaningless touches like an Adrian Peterson in Detroit. He's actually seeing some very high value touches in targets out of the backfield and usage at the goal line. So generally, Darrell Henderson is not going to be a player that I'm too excited about plugging in my flex spot. And if we add on the fact that Brandon Aiyuk has a fantastic matchup, probably the best matchup you could ever dream for this wide receiver, going up against the Seattle Seahawks secondary, which we know the way you attack that secondary is on the outside. I don't think they're going to have Jamal Adams back this game quite yet. Deebo Samuel should be out, which will allow Brandon Aiyuk to fall into that wide receiver 1 role. And honestly, with the Seattle Seahawks defense, the strength is at the linebackers. So while we still expect George Kittle to be that #1 target for Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't think the difference between Kittle and Aiyuk is going to be as large as it would be against a different set of personnel. So really, Aiyuk has a dream spot. We know that the 49ers are going to be playing from behind, so I'm trying to jam in Brandon Aiyuk where I can. Okay, now our next decision is going to be at the running back 2 spot. Clearly, this team is loaded because they're asking Ezekiel Elliott or Jonathan Taylor. And here I'll say, guys, I think that maybe, just maybe, a couple of these Dallas Cowboys players will be buys in the long run. Maybe someone like CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper, based on their talent alone, being able to raise their floor and their ceiling to players that we want to put in our starting lineups. But this is not going to be the week where it looks like Andy Dalton is going to miss this game with his concussion. And with no Andy Dalton, with the offensive line possibly being a bottom 5 unit in football, and on top of that, we know that the Philadelphia Eagles' strength is at their defensive line. Honestly, we are trying to avoid every Dallas Cowboys player this week that we can. It's going to be no exception here with Ezekiel Elliott. And honestly, with Zeke, I'm a little bit lower on him with this change in offense from Dak Prescott to a significantly worse backup quarterback, in that we know the running back position is highly dependent on situation. They are highly dependent on how many points the offense is going to be able to score in any given game. So while Zeke may be a talented running back, at that point, I don't even know if we can say that for sure. We know that he is going to get the opportunity, but he is going to have such low efficiency this week with possibly no Andy Dalton and this offensive line being severely mismatched. I am trying to avoid him where I can. And on the other side of that, Jonathan Taylor looks like he's going to be a complete smash going up against the Detroit Lions. We know the Lions have a horrendous rush defense Also, Jonathan Taylor is one of these rookie running backs coming out of his bye week. We've seen so far in 2020 that when these teams are coming out of their bye weeks, they are really prioritizing getting their rookies involved because they're able to have that extra week of game plan to look at what their rookies have been doing well, what they can do to utilize them in this offense. And I think with Jonathan Taylor, we're going to see his usage go up. We know that he is highly athletic. He has not broken off any long plays so far in 2020. But I think he's going to be a running back that can do so. Honestly, I think the beginning of his career so far is kind of paralleling what we saw with Melvin Gordon way back, and I believe that was the 2015 draft class. So here, I am not willing to give up with Jonathan Taylor. It's a fantastic matchup. We know that this running back is going to see his usage increase. I'm trying to jam him into my lineup over Ezekiel Elliott. Okay, now our next position is going to be between the wide receiver twos, and it's going to be Stefon Diggs or T. Higgins. And yes, I know Stefon Diggs does have a very tough matchup going up against the New England Patriots, who historically, Bill Belichick loves to shut down the number one offensive weapon on his opposing team, just to make that offense be a little bit more creative if they are going to be able to beat him. And with Stefon Diggs, clearly he is the number one option for Josh Allen. He is getting about 25% of his team's target share so far in 2020. This is a wide receiver that is an alpha, maybe the best deep ball separator in the entire NFL. And I will say, with John Brown coming back into this offense, I think that this is actually going to help Stefon Diggs, and that Stefon Diggs is not necessarily going to see his target share alter that much, and that John Brown is a deep ball wide receiver who does not command a ton of targets in any given game. So while I think that, yes, we may see Stefon Diggs lose a target or two a game with John Brown back in the lineup, I think that John Brown providing that great deep threat ability is actually going to be able to open up things for this entire Buffalo Bills offense. If you look at the splits so far of Josh Allen with John Brown and without John Brown, it is night and day. I think that Brown is a significant piece in this offense. And now on the other hand, when we are looking at T. Higgins, I actually love the matchup going up against the Tennessee Titans. There should be a ton of points scored in this game. Neither defense is really strong at their pass protection. And when we are ending up looking at Joe Burrow, this is a quarterback that continues to develop at the NFL level. We are extremely excited to see what his long-term upside is. And it is a little bit concerning with both Tyler Boyd and AJ Green getting targets in this offense. But what is nice is pretty much it's those three wide receivers and nobody else. They don't have a significant tight end. I mean, Drew Sample has seen one blow-up game, but that was where Joe Burrow dropped back and threw over 50 pass attempts. On top of that, they have no wide receiver of consequence whatsoever. So while, yes, there are three top guys on this offense, there's really nobody to steal targets beyond that. So we're not necessarily too worried about T. Higgins in terms of the volume. Still, I will say that we are going to end up having to go with Stefon Diggs. It's not going to be an extremely easy decision, but just understanding that these two wide receivers are in completely different tiers of our rest of season rankings, where I don't think that we can see T. Higgins jump all the way up to that Stefon Diggs tier regardless of the matchup and regardless of Stefon Diggs going up against a very tough matchup against Stephon Gilmore and Bill Belichick. Okay, now our last decision here is going to be between two running backs that I called must-start players so far in Week 8, and this is Giovanni Bernard and DeAndre Swift. So obviously, this is operating under the assumption that Joe Mixon is going to miss this game, because if Joe Mixon is active, we don't have a conversation here. You just go with DeAndre Swift. But assuming we don't see a Joe Mixon, now I think we have something that's going to be extremely close. Because when we are looking at DeAndre Swift, he actually has a pretty tough matchup against a very good Indianapolis Colts run defense, but DeAndre Swift is not that prototypical running back who is seeing about 20 touches throughout the entire football field, and he's not necessarily going to be running between the tackles a lot. What we are seeing with DeAndre Swift is him being used creatively in this Detroit Lions offense. On top of that, he is seeing pretty much every high-value touch at the running back position. He's getting the targets out of the backfield, and he's getting the usage at the goal line. Personally, I don't care if Adrian Peterson is getting 10 carries between the 20s every single game, because what is that going to amount to? I mean, like four fantasy points at the very best. I mean, just those are the meaningless touches on the football field where you're just trying to get the first downs, and really it's not going to translate a ton to fantasy production. So I love DeAndre Swift and his efficiency, but when we go over to Giovanni Bernard, I think that Gio is just going to continue to get every single touch out of this backfield. We actually saw Travion Williams not touch the ball a single time last week, and that was the running back that we were honestly worried about, because we knew that Samaje Perine was not going to be a significant threat to Giovanni Bernard whatsoever. And I know some people want to say we got lucky with our Gio call based on his receiving touchdown at the very end of the game. I think we can look at it at the other end, understanding that Joe Burrow vultured a rushing touchdown from Giovanni Bernard at the very beginning, where we could have seen Gio have that top 5 running back finish last week. Yes, he is going to be a lot more inefficient in terms of fantasy points per touch than a DeAndre Swift, but still, he is seeing every single touch out of this backfield. He's getting those targets. He is getting the usage at the goal line. And on top of that, he is getting those meaningless carries between the 20s. And I think there are going to be so many points scored in this Tennessee Titans and Cincinnati Bengals game, where while it hurts me, y'all know I love DeAndre Swift. He was my #1 running back coming into this year's NFL draft. I think that we are going to end up having to go with Giovanni Bernard. Okay, but thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. As always, if y'all did, please make sure you go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It really helps a ton. And I will not be live streaming tonight, but I will be able to go live for y'all tomorrow morning to answer all questions.